We're honored to be joined by State Senator Vin Gopal, a Democrat based in Monmouth County. He is the conference chair of the Democratic Party in the Senate and also the chair of the Senate Education Committee. Senator, great to have you with us.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
As we're doing this program, there's actually a piece in NJ.com, Star Ledger. I go old school, print as well. It's about mental health issues, a crisis of mental health for our children. And it's written by Adam Clark. Check it out on NJ.com. You were just telling me before we got on the air that the Senate Education Committee just held a hearing on the mental health crisis with our kids. Talk about it, Senator.
Yeah, we had a great hearing over 2 hours. Christine Beyer, Commissioner of Children and Family Services, Amy Kennedy of the Kennedy Foundation, a lot of really good testimony. It's a crisis right now. Children over the last 2 years have lost a lot of normalcy. We don't know the damage it's going to do long term. And it's something that we need to collectively work and fund and make sure that folks, especially those under the 18, have immediate access.
Senator, let me follow up on a previous In a previous interview I did with you, you talked candidly about some of your own challenges and struggles with mental health. How important is it that public officials, prominent, successful public officials like yourself, talk openly about it so that we can, in fact, destigmatize mental health issues, particularly for our kids? Senator.
It's so important. And I've spoken openly on the Senate floor about my own struggles with depression. I think it's important for people to hear that you may have any challenge in life and it's not your fault, whether it's depression, anxiety. Sometimes people get alcoholism, substance abuse, and to get out of it takes a village, but the person that it has to start with is yourself. So I tell students and I tell folks, I said, listen, I'm leading a very productive life. I ran successfully for the state Senate twice, and I did that all while having some mental health challenges. So it's more common than we think. We're seeing early studies in schools, 1 out of every 6 kids are going to have some challenges. And we're not just talking about missing a prom or graduation, but not being in the classroom for a year, maybe seeing a sibling who had a different experience than you did. These are going to have a compounding impact. And we've seen a rise in substance abuse and alcoholism and a lot of other things during the pandemic. So it's important, but without a doubt, we got to break the stigma, especially in a lot of our immigrant communities where, you know, they don't want to talk about mental health. That's a problem.
What kind of reaction? I know there are a whole range of issues we could be talking about, and we will do that in another segment, but I want to stay on this for a second. Senator, what kind of reaction have you gotten from most of your colleagues when you're so candid talking about your own experience and the need for not just policy change, but greater public awareness and government action, helping those struggling with mental health issues, again, particularly our children? What kind of reaction have you gotten?
Positive. People come up, you know, look, there's definitely a generational gap. Governor Cody has spoken very candidly and openly about his family's challenges. We've seen a lot of, you know, other folks who've talking about alcoholism and other challenges they've had. But I think it's important for people to have honest conversations. It's no different than breaking an arm or a leg. This is science. You don't get depressed or anxious from something that's situational. That can affect it, but it's chemical. And I think that's important for people to understand that it's nobody's fault. These things happen, just like any other medical challenge that any resident will face.
Follow up on this. You have, in fact, sponsored legislation that deals with telehealth. It actually, help us understand what this does. I believe it reimburses healthcare professionals around telehealth. Connect that with the exact issue we're talking about right now, which is telehealth around behavioral and mental health issues. People getting the help they need, in some cases, via telehealth. Please, Senator.
Sure. So this is extremely important. You know, telemedicine really took off during the pandemic, and so many mental health sessions, therapy sessions are done through telemedicine. Now, telemedicine may not make sense if you break an arm or break a leg because a doctor might need to touch and feel. That's not the case on mental health. So we fought hard, bipartisan bill to make sure insurance companies reimbursed on telemedicine services. That was one piece. The other thing we did, Steve, last year, which I was proud, 2 things, is we expanded early intervention to all 21 counties, the largest funding increase the legislature ever put in. which means if somebody has a mental health crisis, they get immediate access to a therapist, immediate access um, to a psychiatrist if they need it. And the third thing we did, part of that package, was increase $5 million to the school link service programs, which is actually beginning the process of creating and expanding mental health programs in our school district. So we have a lot of work to do in the months and years ahead, but I think New Jersey's really made some incredible progress this past year.
I disclose a whole range of things, particularly whether someone's an underwriter or not, or a relationship I have. But in the spirit of trying to be consistent with what you've done and how you've provided a great public service by talking about your own issues, in terms of telehealth, I would be less than candid if I did not share that seeing a therapist largely in the last several years through telehealth has been very helpful for me. And I know I'm not alone. And so anything we can do, not just in government, but those in the media, to destigmatize some of the challenges that many of us face, it's our responsibility. So shifting gears, help us on this. In another segment, we're going to talk more about school funding, but I want to talk about an initiative at Monmouth University. You and former State Senator Joseph Carrillo, he's a Republican, you're a Democrat. You have come together with the folks at Monmouth University to do what? And what does that have to do, as we put the graphic up, democracy at a crossroads, with more civil public discourse? Senator Gopal?
Sure. And just really quick, Steve, that's incredible for you to be open and say that. And it's important for all of us in leadership positions to say, because it's important for everyone to hear. And I think that's how we continue to improve, so many lives here in New Jersey. We've seen a rapid decline in civil discourse over the last several years from both political parties. You go on Facebook and Twitter, people are fighting, they're yelling, they're screaming about masks and vaccines and everything else. And look, I talk about this. I go on Governor Murphy's Facebook page, and people aren't criticizing him on his policies. They're talking about his looks. They do this across, like they talk about his family. I just don't know how we've gotten to such a less humane place. And I really blame that partially on social media, but also partially on just a breakdown of structure, things we wouldn't have done, unfortunately, even 10 years ago. So Senator Carrillo, who's a former Republican state chairman, incredible guy, Republican nominee for U.S. Senate against Senator Menendez years ago, but really Republican trailblazers. We came together and we said, listen, we have to make the civil discourse and we have to show we can work together. So we held our first session, Monmouth University, the Office of the President, Department of Political Science, organized it. We're going to do 4 a year. We had hundreds of students tune in. We had Senate President Scutari and Senate Republican leader Steve Orho basically have an incredible conversation, how they have passionate, strong fights and disagreements with each other, but they're always able to respect each other as human beings, where they come from, and never make it personal. And I think that's what we need to bring society back. So I really hope what Monmouth University is doing becomes a model for every college across the country.
Senator, before I let you go, real quick, we have an initiative called Reimagine Childcare, talking about greater public awareness around affordability, quality, and quality childcare. Why is that such an important issue?
It's incredibly important. We know the early stages of a child as far as every type of development greatly impacts later in life and all elements of a child, social and emotional well-being, physical health, and everything else. So this is obviously extremely important, and it's something that we need to continue to focus on. And I know the last several governors is really on early intervention, early support to make sure a child is successful.
That is State Senator Vin Gopal, who is the chair of the Senate Education Committee and the conference chair in the Democratic caucus in the Senate. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you so much.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation. Funding has been provided by the Turrell Fund, supporting Reimagine Childcare, MD Advantage Insurance Company, University Hospital, PNC, Grow Up Great, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, Johnson & Johnson, NJM Insurance Group, NJ Best, New Jersey's 529 College Savings Plan, IBEW Local 102, and by these public-spirited organizations, individuals, and associations committed to informing New Jersey citizens about the important issues facing the Garden State. And by Employers Association of New Jersey. Promotional support provided by NJ.com and by bestofNJ.com.
New Jersey's early educators and childcare providers are more than twice as likely to live below the poverty line versus the general workforce. Reimagine Childcare, formed by a coalition in New Jersey, is dedicated to improving accessibility, affordability, and quality of childcare and reimagining the way we support these essential providers. Learn more by visiting reimaginechildcare.org.